Hello guys, welcome back to the crew. Driving all cars, part number 23. The Ford Mustang 2011. Interior look of the full stock car here. Nothing wrong, it is daylight. You can see the dials, you can see the numbers, so it is not ruined by the tunnel patch. But while I'm saying that, I just realized that there was a maintenance today. I haven't checked the cars that suffer from that tunnel patch, meaning that you can't see the dials and the numbers anymore during daylight. It might been patched today, I don't know. There was a maintenance, was it just to clean out the servers a bit, or I don't know. I haven't checked, I will do that later, and if so, if it has changed, I will mention it in one of the next videos. The Ford Mustang 2011. I don't think it is one of the starters cars. I think you have the 2015 Mustang as one of the starters cars. Although that one is not full spec, this one is a full spec. So it has all the 5 normal specs: street, dirt, performance, rate and circuit, and the 3 extreme specs as well: drift, monster and drag. Which means a lot of testing to do, a long video again, but yeah, that's how it goes. I am testing the cars at this moment which have a drag spec, for the simple reason that that track won't be available to test every time. It will only be available till August 18, something like that, because that's when the qualifier starts, where we use that track, and then it will be gone from the practice mode. But first things first. This is someone going to, I can tell you that right now, it's just going to be sort of a double video. At one point I get stuck in a black screen situation again. If you repeat free drives too much, then sometimes you get stuck and then you have to reboot the game and go out of it. And that's what happens in this video, so I sort of have to do 2 videos here. But meanwhile we are doing the acceleration test in the street spec of this Mustang, and it's well, sort of going to end up in an average score, meaning that street spec, the Abarth with 26.3 is still the fastest. A slower are doing 27 something. 26.770, middle of the pack as we call it. And that's what is this kind of normal. It has a 5-liter V8 engine, if I'm not mistaken, but it's a bit heavy, and that usually it's not good for the acceleration test. It's a full spec, so it also has a dirt spec. As always, hitting the nitro at the first checkpoint here, which is the quarter mile. I have a second checkpoint, that's the half mile. Here we go. And then towards the finish, and that's exactly 1 mile. 27 something should be possible in a dirt spec, at least. Most dirt spec that we tested did 27. 27.959, that's almost 28, which means no good at all acceleration. So again, weight coming back, acceleration slow. Okay. We'll see for the other specs, but street only average, dirt even below average. So performance, let's take a look at that. Performance spec. Fastest time here, 22.8, Aston Martin Vanquish. Slowest time here in performance, 24.7, 24.8 by one of the Escalades, I believe. I would say one of the Escalades, I mean one of the Cadillacs. The Escalade or the Eldorado, one of those two. Long 5th gear here, that's usually killing us in acceleration tests, but we'll see. 24.3, okay. That's about 1.5 seconds slower than the fastest one here. I don't think we can call that good either. Below average for the performance spec, pretty simple. Moving to the rate spec. Ford Mustang GT 2011 in rate spec. Considered to be one of the best, and to many of the players it's considered to be the best. It's all a matter of opinion. There are other good or even decent cars. I find it a bit, I don't know, it's a bit light by occasions to some specific tracks. I prefer the Silverado, but other than that, speed-wise and stuff like that, this is the way to go for the rate. But surprisingly, the acceleration is not that good. We saw here. I have this thing full speed, and a 30.6 can't really call that fast, since it's half a second slower than the fastest one that we tested here so far. Although it is still good, of course, it's amongst the better, because the slowest one here was a buggy with a time of 31.4 or something. That's almost 1 second slower. The fastest one, not 100% sure, but for instance the Focus, which we tested in the previous video, did a 30.2. This is 30.6, it's slower. Moving towards the circuit spec. Circuit spec, BMW bike 22.0, BMW M4 22.8. The slowest here, not sure, but it were high 23 seconds, or maybe even 24, I can't even remember that. Should make a note of the fastest and the slowest time next, if we ever break it, but if I can find the time I will take a look at the numbers exactly, so that I know the fastest and slowest for each spec. 23.3 is, well, that's not that slow. So this car is kinda, well, it's a bit of a mix. The street spec is pretty much simple, slow. The dirt spec is kinda average. The performance spec is below average. The dirt spec is also below average, almost 28 seconds. The rate spec is okay, and the circuit spec is kinda fast, in acceleration that is. But yeah, we'll have to see for that, don't we? This is a full spec, so I'm sorta comparing with the Camaro Chevrolet and the Dodge Challenger 2012. I think this was supposed to be one of the starter cars, but then they probably get the license for the 2015 version, and then they put that one in as one of the starter cars. But that does not have all the specs, if I'm not mistaken. This one does. That's why I think this one should have been one of the starter cars. Probably planned it like that and replaced it later on with the 2015. That's why I'm comparing with the Camaro and the Challenger, but those really have a boat handling. This one suffers a bit from not that good brakes, and it has wheel spin in all over the place. Hit the throttle and you're putting tire marks on the road, and that's costing you time in summit events, time attacks. It's gonna cost you time if you're spinning your wheels like crazy, while the other cars that don't have that, they just take off and you're behind. And then you have a problem seeing the acceleration in the street spec is not that good, so you can't really catch up. Although if you can catch the slipstream, you might catch up, because this thing has a decent top speed though. Comparing to the Camaro and the Challenger, then I would definitely go for this one, because the Camaro and the Challenger were not that good. They suffered more from the well, what I call boat handling. Not such good brakes, little understeer, little oversteer, bit of all, and well, the bad brakes, that's something that's coming back here. Doesn't really have good brakes. Wheelspin is something, yeah, it's slowing you down as well, but it has a decent top speed. But all in all, not that good of a street spec. If you're gonna have an American battle with the Camaro and the Challengers with your friends or something, go ahead, then this is a good option. But if you're going to PvP where people drive all sorts of cars, then you can forget about it. Because this one is definitely gonna get smoked by Skylines, Minis, BRZs, you name it. Even other cars are faster than this one. Maybe not top speed wise, but acceleration wise and handling wise, so you can't keep up going through the corners, coming out of the corners. You also have a problem. Only on the long straight you might catch up, so because of the higher top speed, but not that good. So street spec will definitely not be the best use for this car. But I think I already mentioned that, so what the best use for these normal specs will be, that will be the rate. Rate is considered one of the best rate specs in this game. Coming to the performance spec, only average on the acceleration test, and that's sorta, well, a thing that will kinda be confirmed here. Not that you can't use it, but didn't really make that corner, because coming back from the performance from the street spec, the brakes are still no good. They have improved a bit, but they always do, street compared to performance. They probably will be a bit better again in the circuit spec, but that doesn't mean you can call them good. Understeered here. Some corners with oversteers. In the wheel spin is coming back as well in this one. Although if you like muscle cars, yeah, you can have some fun with it in free drive, you can cruise around with it, not a problem. It's not like it is a really boat handling car, not really the case. You can throw it around and stuff like that, but you get wheel spin, you get oversteer, you get understeer. So you're kind of fighting with that car, and as a competitive player, it's costing you time. The corners are costing you time, the wheel spin is costing you time. So it's not the way to go if you're dealing with time attacks, or even races in PvP with some decent drivers. You're not gonna do miracles with this thing. Speed wise, we are going towards the 400, not really over it, so better performance specs will go over it. Good thing there was a car, because otherwise we probably would end up on the parking lot. Seeing the brakes are kinda lacking a bit of power. Pretty decent V8 sound, that's always cool for a muscle car, but doesn't look that bad, although I kinda prefer the Challenger look. But that's a personal opinion, of course. Performance spec of the Mustang 2011, I would say average. Coming to the circuit spec, which I came up with with the Camaro and the Challenger. Although I wasn't sure with the Challenger to go for circuit or rate, so I didn't put a best use in the description, only for the monster spec to use there. But for the Camaro, I eventually ended up with the best use being the circuit spec. But in this case it's pretty simple. Also this one, lack of brake power. So street performance circuit, nope. They can be driven in free drive and maybe restricted to American qualifiers. Maybe you can use this one, but even then, no. Then I'm thinking Ford GT is available. And then this thing has not really a chance. So no. Also in circuit spec, not a miracle breaker. Well, a miracle breaker, I mean a record breaker, but you're gonna need a miracle if you want to break a record with this car. Although out of the three tested, this is probably the best one. It has decent speed, you can throw it into the corner, so well, if you're an optimist you can find some sort of fun factor in it. $400, where are we going? 415, 416. It's not that bad, although the better circuit specs will go over 420 on that section. But yeah, out of the three road specs, street performance circuit, then probably this one will be the best, but compared to the other circuit specs, no, really. I'm gonna let this video run for a bit, but you will see what I mean. So we are moving to the dirt spec now, and as you will see, there's nothing wrong. This game is running like it should be running, and there is not a problem. So I immediately start a new free drive challenge. That's what I'm doing in those dirt and rate tests, and then you get the black screen situation. Well, I could keep this video running, but it's not going anywhere because this is what it is, and you're not getting out of that, and at a certain moment you will even get an inactivity pop-up saying that you're inactive. Yeah, of course you're inactive because you can't do a thing. You're in a black screen situation and the free drive challenge doesn't want to start. So we are stopping the video here. I had to reboot the game and then restart it again with the point that we were. Free drive challenge, sort of a new video. This time it all goes right, so I can keep going with this one. So we were down to the dirt spec and we're gonna test that one now. It as shown in the acceleration test, almost 28 seconds, which is pretty slow for a dirt spec. So it's one of those cars again where you're constantly pressing the nitro, and even that not really improving things. It has a decent top speed though. That's also something that came back with the other specs, but it's not good enough. You also need acceleration, you need corner speed, going into the corners, coming out of the corners. And you will always have your nitro bar close to empty, because you have to often use it to help this car come out of the corners, and because of the lack of acceleration and because of the weight, which will probably be the reason for that. It's a pretty heavy car, and that usually results in low acceleration, and that's nothing new with this one. It's sort of the same. And this is a pretty well, flat, and then there are a few jumps here and there, a few corners, but let's say it's a pretty easy dirt track that I sort of going around the salt, the Bonneville salt flats. There is some kind of dirt track there, and that's basically what I'm doing here in this free drive challenge. With the dirt specs, I keep on the dirt road, and with the race specs, I'm sort of doing the same track, but then going over the hills and dunes and take the jumps there. But with this, I really don't shortcut. I just keep it on the dirt road, as you're supposed to do with the dirt spec. But yeah, like everybody knows, we use shortcuts here and there. Although going off-road too much is not a good idea with the dirt spec, because just like the street performance and circuit specs, going off-road, it's limited to 110 miles, or you will drop down to 110 miles or 170 kilometers an hour. Which is not the case, as you can see here. I'm doing not 170, but I'm almost doing 260, so keep it on the dirt, you keep it going. Go off-road, it will drop down to 170. And that's also where this car is going nowhere. If you don't hit the nitro, then this car is not really going anywhere. The acceleration is just too slow. So it's not that good in dirt. On roads like this it is, but it is a pretty easy track. If you have roads with one corner after another, like here, situation here, then you're gonna lack power. It has, but you're gonna lack acceleration. And you can only see and watch the others take off. Sections like this, you're really missing the power coming out of the corner, which is kinda strange, seeing it has a 5-liter V8, it has power, it just, well, it's not programmed to put that power on the road here. And meanwhile we went from daylight to night in a sorta, well, smooth way for once. Usually you have the night bug, which suddenly makes your screen go black on you. You think it is, but then the lights go on and the lights of your car go on. But all in all, the time, surprisingly, is not that bad. Somewhere around 5 minutes on this time, and that's mainly because it has a decent high top speed, and because I was constantly pressing the nitro. If I would really push it with the better dirt specs, I'm pretty sure you can go way under 5 minutes here on this track. It's not that bad, it can be used and all that, but it's not one of the better dirt spec. Moving on to the rate spec, as already mentioned a couple of times. Well, to some this is the best rate spec. Of course it's all personal opinion, but it definitely is one of the best. I quite often use it, although I do prefer the Silverado a bit, but sometimes depending on the track, depending on the situation, this one is just better. But one of the rivals is the Silverado. Probably between those two for the title of Rate King, although Mini Cooper, if there are not too many big obstacles, Mini Cooper has a high speed as well, so that can keep up. Although that tends to flip over, but in general you are looking at the best rate spec here, at least top two. This one or the Silverado, it's a matter of preferences I guess, but some tracks this one will be better, some tracks the Silverado might be better. Although there are others which come close, but yeah. So this one has a decent acceleration, it has a pretty good top speed, and it doesn't have a big problem with whatever obstacle on its way. Little jump, corners, no problem, big jumps, no problem. And the Silverado being a pickup, it's of course, well, it's a bit heavier, and this is a bit lighter, so it goes quickly over from one jump to another and not a problem. Jump, landing, keep going, bam, up, next jump, let it come. So that's why the best rate spec, it goes smoothly from one jump to another and not losing too many speed on landings and stuff like that, unless you gonna flick it about like here, but pretty strong nose as well, so you can immediately help out if needed by pushing a bit of nose. So it's overall it has it all a bit. It has the acceleration, it has the handling, it has the top speeds. It's a pretty decent suspension. Kind of took a little spin there, but nevertheless it doesn't crash, it doesn't flip over. Jump, landing, and it keeps going. It's a bit sliding sometimes, but there has to be something with the car. I mean, it can't be perfect. No matter what difficulties you get with it, or no matter what you hit, it sort of keeps going all the time, and not only that, on a pretty smooth pace as well. So that's why this is probably considered to be the best of the rate specs. This one or the Silverado, one of those two for me. It has a bit more speed and it's a bit lighter, so it all goes a bit smoother by first looks, but if you're gonna compare times, sometimes come pretty close with Silverado or even do better. It all depends a bit on the track circumstances, I guess. Meanwhile, we are close to 5 minutes, just over it. This is one of the cars you can definitely, if you keep it a bit cleaner, can definitely go way under 5 minutes here. So, are we looking at the best rate spec? For most people it is. So, there's no doubt about it that the best use for the 5 normal specs, best use is the rate spec, by far. The street is not good at all, the dirt is not that good either. Performance, nope. Circuit, well, okay, you can use that here or there, but there are better circuit specs out there for sure. Rate spec, if you use this one, you might get a fight from a Silverado here or there, but at least you're fighting for the win. Then, which brings us to the extreme specs. And that's a bit of a, well, strange car, this one. The drag spec. If you test this on the track like this, which we are going to do now, it's not that slow, it's not that fast. Somewhere in the middle of the pack. 4th, 5th, 6th, somewhere depending on the tracks. So it's not that bad, but it's not that good either. But this car has sorta of a double life in drag. If you are in a crew, 2 people or 3 people of your friends helping you out. So it has to be a crew of 2 or 3 at least, and you put those 2 or 3 in a fast accelerating drag car helping you out, because the acceleration on this car is not that superb. So they take off for sure, you see them go away, and then you have to catch up in their slipstream. Then you are looking at the number 1 drag car, because this thing can reach 655 kilometers an hour top speed, and there is nothing coming close to it. The rough CTR3, which is probably considered, and probably also is, the best drag car, can reach 617, 618 under slipstream with friends, helping each other out or ghost riding. And this doesn't 40 kilometers an hour more. But if you do it in a solo run like I'm doing here now, then this car is just somewhere in the middle of the pack. So the number 1 in crew drag, let's call it that, that's what this is. If you're going to talk about solo runs, doing it by yourself, yeah, then it's just somewhere in the middle. Sort of a double life, this car. But with a couple of Vipers or a CTR3 in front of you, hitting the nitro a bit later than your friends, and poof, there you go. 655 kilometers an hour, you catch up with them, you pass them. If you're in a crew of 4, you can use 2 roughs, or a rough and a Viper, and 2 of you in a Mustang. Then you can both catch up in the Mustangs, and then you can pass your friends, and for the last bit, sort of ghost drive. 2 Mustangs sort of driving into each other, drive as one car, that gives it another extra bit of sort of the same effect as a slipstream. And then you're gonna set the fastest times, especially on the longer tracks. We are coming on the last run here, resulting in a 22.263. That is drag car number 6 that we are testing here, if I'm not mistaken. Let me look at the numbers again. 22.4 for the Camaro, 22.5 for the Challenger, 22.5 for the Corvette, 22.0 for the Viper, which is one of the fastest accelerating cars, and we have a 22.2 for this one. So it's what did the Focus do? Yeah, that was the slowest of the lot on this track, 22.6. So the Mustang 6 drag cars tested 22.2. I do expect that the 370Z and the two roughs will go faster. So it is, like I said, number 4, number 5, number 6, depending on the track a bit. If you're in a crew, you're looking at the number 1 of the drag cars. Although the rough also is pretty good if you use it in a crew with ghost driving. But on the longer tracks, this thing can reach a higher speed, well, giving you an advantage over the rough. That's why it's on the longer tracks the number 1 drag car. If you're in a crew. In a solo run, just middle of the pack. The Monster spec, that's a bit tricky. It can definitely be used in American qualifiers or restricted to American cars. You can use this. But there are quite a few options if you go to Monster spec and it is restricted to American cars. Then we are the Dodge Challenger. I personally find it a bit better. The Camaro is sort of the same, but maybe the Mustang is a bit better than. But yeah, then there is also the Raptor and the Scirocco, which are probably next to the Skyline, sort of the top 3 of the Monster specs. But this can for sure be used, although it has, well, as you will see in some of the combinations that I'm doing here, pretty smooth landing here, but the landing not always goes right. Sometimes it kind of takes off on the rear wheels, or it dives with the nose to the ground, and then you're sort of on the front wheels. So the landings are a bit tricky with this car. And I think it is in this arena that if you do this Monster arena in a point situation where you have to get points, here you go on the rear wheels. So the landing not always goes perfect, and it's also, it does something strange with the camera in this arena, for instance. If you go through the 500 combinations that are here, if you do this in a Monster arena event, then it sort of moves the camera, and which is kind of strange because it only does it with this car. Might be a bug, but nevertheless it's bothering you if you're doing it. Acceleration is kind of okay with this one. Speed, well, there are fasters out there. The fastest, if you're talking about top speed, the fastest is probably the Raptor. Acceleration, it has pretty strong NOS. You can do the combinations, put it down, pretty smooth landings most of the time, but not all the time. Up, here we go on the front wheels this time. That's kind of the risk with this thing. Other than that, it can for sure be used. But we are talking extreme specs, and yeah, then we have the drift to go, but well, that's not that good either. It can be used as well. Every drift car can be used in this game, and you would score points with it. But it's a bit heavy to flick that one around, compared to, for instance, a Focus, which is also a Ford, which can be used in American qualifiers for the drift. Then the Focus is better than the Mustang for sure, because it's lighter and it's easier to flick around. So drift spec is not the best either. Monster can be used just like the drag can be used, but the drag can give you the better scores, especially if you're in a crew. Then it's one of the best drag cars. So for the extreme spec, best use is the drag, at least in my opinion. The drift, it's a bit, I find it a bit hard to make some sort of ranking of drift cars, because, like I said, you can use them all. But this one, like the Challenger, like the Camaro, they're a bit heavy to kind of flick around. And one is better than the other, in my opinion as well. I've tested all at 749, so this one is at 763 now. My Camaro is, I think it's already at 1299 meanwhile, but still the Camaro is the best of those three. Camaro, Challenger, Mustang, then the Camaro for me is the best. This car is not that bad. I'm using Nitro here for the simple reason it doesn't have enough power because it's not at 1299, but that doesn't change much on the weight situation. Even if you have it at 1299, it still will be a pretty heavy car, and which makes it a bit harder to throw that thing around from one corner to another or from one side to another. Also the response is not that superb or that fast, which makes it a bit tricky as well. If you make a little mistake here or there and you have to do an extra flick or a correction, it's going to go a bit slower. It is probably pretty good, as usually is with those heavier cars on big slides. So on wide tracks where you have big corners where you can do long slides, then this might be an option. But on the more narrow tracks like here, with uphills and shorter corners and sharper corners, it's a bit tricky. It's a bit too heavy to flick it around enough and get smooth route or run going. But my guess is eventually, if you have all the drift cars at 1299 and you, well, maybe not the 7-gear cars, but all the other cars, you probably, if you practice with it a lot, you can get the multiplier at 99 with all of those cars. But this one is not a car that I, even if it is 1299, I will not use it very much. We are talking on about a heavier car, a wider car, then you're mostly of the time will end up with the BMW M5. That's just that's better than the Camaro, it's better than the Challenger, it's better than the Mustang. Out of the three Americans, the Camaro is probably the best one. But so this one is kind of okay, you can use it, but other than that, nothing special about it. So, which brings us all specs covered for this car. And conclusion is that for the normal specs, best use the rate spec, seeing that is probably the best that there is. If not, then it will definitely be top 2. And for the drag, well, sort of a double life. In solo runs it's sort of in the middle of the pack, but if you're in a crew, it's also top 2 material. That will be it for this one, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.